Hello and welcome back to Universal Recaps. Today, I'm here to provide a detailed overview of the thrilling crime movie, Girl in the Basement. The story opens with our central character, Sara, and her father, Don, urgently rushing Marie to the hospital due to her struggle to breathe. Sara's anxiety increases as Marie's breathing stops, urging Don to speed up their journey. Upon their arrival at the hospital, Don instructs Sara to maintain silence. Inside the hospital, paramedics quickly respond to help Marie, giving her oxygen in an attempt to save her life. However, the monitor displays a flat heart line, indicating a dead situation. Now, the story rewinds the clock 20 years back to a family dinner scene. Sara and her sister Amy share a meal with their parents, Don and Irene. The atmosphere heats up as Sara's father reveals his controlling nature, restricting her from attending a party and scolding her over the family. That night, after a fight, Sara secretly sneaks out to meet her boyfriend, Chris. Her parents later discover her absence, and her father labels her as a big problem. At the party, Sara enjoys herself, dancing with Chris. Later he sings her with a song he had composed, expressing their deep love for one another. Later they kiss. When Sara returns home the next morning, Don has been waiting all night at the door. A heated argument begins, with Sara revealing her intentions to permanently leave the family upon turning 18 years old. She tells her mother and sister about her plans to travel the country while working to support herself. Her father overhears this conversation and leads to the basement, unveiling a concealed room behind a bookshelf. 3 months later, Sara graduates, and in a conversation with her mother, it becomes clear that her father has been spending more time in the basement. As Irene leaves the house, Don takes Sara into the basement under the words of helping him with a heavy box placed. Once inside, he reveals the room as a bomb shelter constructed by the previous homeowner, and behind her back, he locks her in. She screams, but no one listens as the room turns out to be soundproof. Sara's mother, concerned about her daughter's well-being, contacted the police and filed a complaint. On the 4th day of her captivity, her father visits downstairs, explaining the new rules of her captivity. She must now earn everything, even the clean, ventilated air. Before leaving, Dawn takes advantage of her daughter Sara. A week later, a police officer later visits the family, suggesting that Sara may have left for her planned cross-country trip. Her mother, however, doubts that Sara would not depart without a farewell, especially before her 18th birthday. Alone and afraid, Sara reminds about her night with Chris as the days pass by. Chris pays a visit to the house, and Dawn fabricates a story, claiming that Sara ran away with her childhood neighbor, Steve, after graduation. On the 21st day of her basement captivity, Sara celebrates her 18th birthday. Her father surprises her with a red nightgown and a cake as a gift. She requests a clock, and Dawn insists that she must do something for him in return. When she disobeys, he subjects her to physical abuse. Nearly a year into her captivity, Sara discovers that she is pregnant, and her water breaks. In captivity, she gives birth to a daughter named Marie. 4 years later, Sara is pregnant once again. Don leads a double life, one with his wife Irene and daughter Amy, and another in the basement with Sara and her daughter Marie. Irene, still concerned about Sara's well-being, considers hiring a private investigator, but Don opposes the idea. As a reward for good behavior, Don introduces a television in the basement for Sara and Marie. Sometime later, Sara gives birth to a baby boy named Michael. One night, Sara transforms her harsh life story into a bedtime narrative filled with princesses and dark nights for her children. Chris revisits the house, inquiring about Sara. Her sister Amy discloses the truth to him, leading to a discussion about Don's bad behavior with Sara. Amy is sure that Don might have harmed Sara, according to his past personality and temper issues. To spend the passage of time, Sara invents imaginative adventures for her children to help them forget the outside world. Upstairs, Don faces the consequences of his lies as Amy and Irene confront him in a heated argument. Furious, Irene tells to do everything in her power to locate her missing daughter. During their argument, Don drops his keys on an armchair, which Amy takes to search for clues in the basement. Don takes back the keys and clashes with Amy. She is angry and fearful, and blames him for Sara's disappearance. As time progresses, Sara gives birth to another baby boy, Thomas. In a calm and good manner, she convinces Don to take the third baby upstairs, explaining the lack of space in the basement and her inability to care for the infant now. The baby is left on the house's porch by Don, intended to be discovered by Irene. Inside the baby basket lies a heartfelt note written by Sara, declaring the child as her own baby and expressing her desire that Irene should raise the baby. The letter explains her bad financial conditions with her boyfriend. Within the basket, there is another note from Sara pleading for help. Regrettably, Don discovers these notes and assaults her once again. As the years pass in captivity, the children's remarkable imagination expands upon their mother's bedtime tale. By this time, Sara had been in the basement for 14 years. Marie has grown into a beautiful young girl who one night experiments with makeup. When Don displays interest in her appearance, Sara tells him to leave her daughter untouched, fearing further assault. In retaliation, Don cuts off the power and vent of clean air. During this time, Marie expresses her concerns about never meeting anyone or having friends, gradually revealing her unawareness of Don's dual role as both her grandfather and father. Meanwhile, Thomas discovers his grandmother crying in his mother's bedroom. Irene expresses her grief for Sara's presence and praises her beauty. Meantime, in the basement, raindrops seep through the ceiling, prompting Sara to investigate. She discovers a damp roof and uses a spoon to dig her way to the surface, where she signals for help in distress. A neighbor notices this signal and informs Don but does not investigate personally. Don subsequently beats Sara, who is once again pregnant. The beating leads to the loss of her baby and she cries in pain. Sara gives a stillbirth and Don buries the infant in the yard. Don descends to the basement, complaining and simultaneously praising Thomas, who has grown into a strong athlete. Marie and Michael inquire about when they will be allowed to experience the outside world, and Don places the blame on Sara for her bad misconduct and bad behavior. Under pressure from her children's inquiries regarding their lives, Sara, in a fit of rage, destroys all the furniture before collapsing, exhausted. As she dreams about her happiest moments with Chris, her children cover her with a blanket and restore order to their home. They apologize to her, and an emotional Sara tells them old enough to hear the truth behind their life in captivity. Up to this point, they believed that Don resided upstairs with their Aunt Irene, aiding in the care of Thomas. Fed up with lies, Sara discloses everything, starting with the revelation that her life inspired their bedtime story. She gently explains that Don is both her father and their father. Upon learning this painful truth, Marie experiences a severe asthma attack, leaving other children feeling that something is very wrong. Sara reassures them, telling them that Don is solely responsible for all this. A year later, another argument begins between Don and Michael. Food in the basement becomes rationed as Don encounters difficulties at work, ultimately losing his job. Facing foreclosure, Don attempts to murder the family in the basement by connecting the car's exhaust to the air vent. However, his plan is destroyed when Thomas enters the garage to collect tools. While Don and his family enjoy a barbecue in the yard, Marie falls ill and struggles to breathe. Don refuses to take her to the hospital, prompting Sara to beg for his assistance, promising her silence on all matters. Don accepts, leaving Michelle behind. Now, fast forward 20 years of captivity, and we return to the beginning of the film as Marie is rushed to the hospital. Sara is deeply concerned about Marie's life and gets relief when the doctors manage to save her. When the nurse inquires about Marie's medical history, Don tells her, and then the doctor learns that Marie has been homeschooled and primarily treated with natural remedies. Sara quietly surveys the hospital, seeking an escape route, but she appears isolated. In a last effort to break free, Sara spills water on the medical forms and gets a chance of separating from Don. Just moments before Don reaches her, Sara approaches a nurse, confessing her desperate need for help. A police officer arrives to speak with Don, eventually leading to his arrest. Sara shares the news with Marie, and they finally realize they are safe and free. The house fills with police officers, who also rescue Michael. Irene and Thomas are devastated as they witness Michael struggling for air while being removed from the base. Don watches the scene unfold from the back of the police vehicle. Later, on a beautiful sunny day, Marie, Thomas, and Michael play in the garden, while Sara, Irene, and Amy watch over them from the window. Marie notices someone approaching from the driveway. It's Chris. He arrives on his bike, and together with Sara, they go on a long-awaited motorcycle ride. This makes the beginning of their newly found happiness. Subscribe to Universal Recaps and turn on notifications for regular updates. Give a thumbs up if you like our content.